Good morning, Faithful Baptist Church. Welcome to our lesson for the day, April 7th. I do have to give a shout out to my mom. It's her birthday today, and she's been watching some of these videos. So, Mom, if you're watching this, happy birthday. Hope you have a good day. And I'll be giving you a call today, so don't worry. But we're going to go ahead and get into our lesson. So, as always, I want to encourage you to grab a pen and paper and make sure that you have prayed before going through the lesson today. But we're going to jump right in. So we're continuing in our series, and we are right now dealing with unacceptable worship. And today we are going to be dealing with inferior worship, part 2. So what is that? Well, it's worship that fails to give God his due. Inferior worship occurs when we fail to give God what belongs to him. First point we're going to address is this: everything we have belongs to God. Psalms 24:1, the earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So this should be a fairly simple point. Everyone should be pretty familiar with this concept that God owns everything. God created everything. He is the creator of the world, and he owns everything. There's other verses talking about he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And so we know that concept. We understand that. And we're going somewhere with this. So we're building off of these points, and we have a destination that we're going to reach with this. But first thing, keep this in mind. Everything we have belongs to God. Second point, everything we have was given to us by God. All right, everything we have was given to us by God. James 1:17. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Now, this is a verse that I feel like we've used a handful of times in the very recent past, but man, it's a good verse. And it does say that every good gift and every perfect gift is from above. And we know that this is talking about everything that we use in our life, the practical things in normal day-to-day life, are from God. That's what this verse is talking about. So we know that not only does God own everything, we know that everything that we have was given to us by God. Third point, we're just stewards of what God has given to us. So it's this idea of it's mine and I own it and I possess it. Maybe amongst each other that's true, but when it comes to our relationship with God, we have to understand that since he owns everything and everything we have was given to us by him, that means that we are just stewards of what God has given to us. 1 Timothy 6 verses 17 and 18, it says, charge them that are rich in this world, that they be not high-minded, nor trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who giveth us richly all things to enjoy. So verse 17 here, it says to not be high-minded. So don't think about all the things that you have, the things that God has given to you, and think that there's something amazing or special about yourself, because it's not really yours. It's the Lord's. He owns it. He gave it to you. Do not trust in those riches. They are uncertain. If you had all your money in the stock market in the last month, those are some uncertain riches. All right? So instead of trusting in those, what should you trust in? Well, the living God. The one who giveth us richly all things to enjoy. So all the things that he's given to us, it's for our enjoyment. It's because of his goodness. And then verse 18 says, that they do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate. You see, when God blesses us with material wealth, God has an expectation that we're going to use that material wealth and distribute it and do good to others, do good works. That is what God is expecting for us to do. That's how we are being good stewards of what it is that God has given to us. And I tell you what, there's kind of a mindset that we have in our family that everything that we have, if we can use it somehow for the Lord's work, we're going to use it. So if we have place for someone to stay, or if we have something that someone can borrow in ministry or something, then we are definitely going to find those opportunities to do that, because just tracing the blessings of God in our life and in our family's life, it's been incredible to see what God's done for us. And, having that mindset and understanding exactly what God has given to us and the fact that it is His and we are just stewards of it, it definitely tends to make us more generous with the things that we have and be more willing to use them to be a blessing to others. And so that is a natural result of having that right biblical mindset. So we are just stewards of what God has given to us. Next point. God requires that we give back a portion of what He has given to us. Now, we're going to start talking about tithing. All right, let's look at this verse here. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 1 and 2. Paul's talking here. This is what he says. Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, as God hath prospered him, that there be no gatherings when I come. Now, I know pastor talking about tithing, right? It sounds kind of like he may have a vested interest in the church tithing. I can tell you any pastor that's worth his salt, any pastor who is genuinely following the call of God on his life is not interested in money. You could probably find out very, very easily that the vast majority of pastors would receive a pretty significant pay raise if they were to go get an entry-level position at almost any company. The ministry is not a money-making industry. There is not a lot of money in ministry. Every now and then we do see a couple of larger churches, and the Lord's blessed them, and they're doing great things with the income that is brought in through their tithes and offerings, and they're reaching around the world and doing great things for the cause of Christ, and that's wonderful. And every now and then we see men who abuse their position, and they get rich off ministry. They get rich off of the faith of others. And those people are charlatans and they're crooks, and not very many of them exist. And if you look at the amount of pastors there are out there compared to the amount of those who are making a killing off of ministry, you understand that that is very, very uncommon. And so when a pastor is saying, hey, you need to tithe and you need to be faithful in giving your tithes and your offerings, it is not merely because they're hoping that they're going to get some of that or they're hoping to make some money off of that. That's not it at all. We're going to get into that in just a second as to why they do that, all right? And here's the beginning of it. Because when we refuse to give back that portion that God's given to us, God considers it stealing. We may consider it, we might have excuses for it. We might try to play it off or something like that. But in the eyes of God, he just calls it stealing, right? Malachi chapter 3, verses 8 and 9. Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me. But ye say, wherein have we robbed thee? Well, where have you robbed God? Well, in tithes and offerings. Ye are cursed with accursed, for ye have robbed me, even this whole nation. This is some pretty harsh words. And God is not okay when we do not give our tithes or our offerings. He calls it stealing. He's saying you're a robber. He says you are cursed. So it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of important. And this brings us to a final question. How can our worship be pleasing to God if we are stealing from him? So hold on a second. Let's bring this all back and bring it all together, right? God owns everything, okay? We acknowledge that. Everything we have, God's given to us, okay? Because of that, we can acknowledge that we are just stewards of the things that God has given to us. We also see very clearly in Scripture that there is an expectation that we give back a portion of what God's given to us. And lastly, if we do not give back to God that portion, he considers it stealing. So how can our worship be pleasing to God if we are stealing from him? The answer is that it cannot be pleasing to God. If we are rebelling against him in the area of giving, if we are not being grateful for what he's done for us, what he's doing for us, and how he's providing for us, we are at ought with God. And so when pastors talk about tithing and giving, it is very true that there's a practical nature to that. Yes, the church has different financial obligations. We've got to pay rent. We've got to, pay different bills. Missionaries that we've made commitments to. There are pastors that need to get their paycheck to pay their bills and live and provide for their family. Sure, there's a practical nature to it, but at the very root of it, a pastor is about trying to promote your relationship with God and help you grow in your relationship with God. And if you are not tithing, then you are just you're at ought with God. You're not where you should be in your relationship with him. So of course the pastor's going to address that, or he should address that, not for his benefit, but for your benefit and what's best for you and for your family. And so I hope that you'll consider this. And that's the lesson for today. But understand that if we don't give God what is his, if we don't give him what's due to him, then we cannot worship him. We cannot worship him. Thanks for tuning in today, and we will see you tomorrow.